I knew that.
Vaishnavis, anybody? Kachchit, weather. Buddha, very learned. Swasti, well. Anamiva, faultless. Aste, does exist. Swapalka Putra, the son of Swapalka, Akrura. Bhagavat, regarding the personality of Godhead. Prapana, surrendered. Ya, one who. Krishna, the Lord. Pada Ankita, marked with footprints. Marga, path. Pamsusu, in the dust. Achestata, exhibited. Prema Bibina, lost in transcendental love. Darya, mental equilibrium. Translation and please tell me whether Akrura, the son of Swapalka, is doing well. He is a faultless soul surrendered unto the personality of Godhead. He once lost his mental equilibrium due to his ecstasy of transcendental love and fell down on the dust of a road which was marked with the footprints of Lord Krishna. Purport. When Akrura came to Vrindavan in search of Krishna, he saw the footprints of the Lord on the dust of Nandagram and at once fell on them in ecstasy of transcendental love. This ecstasy is possible for a devotee who is fully absorbed in incessant thoughts of Krishna. Such a pure devotee of the Lord is naturally faultless because he is always associated with the supremely pure personality of Godhead. Constant thought of the Lord is the antiseptic method for keeping oneself free from the infectious contamination of the material qualities. The pure devotee of the Lord is always in company with the Lord by thinking of him. Yet in the particular context of time and place, the transcendental emotions take a different turn, and this breaks the mental equilibrium of the devotee. Lord Chaitanya displayed the typical example of transcendental ecstasy as we can understand from the life of this incarnation of God. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopisham Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Devopi Swapadantikam. So, you know how devotees, like I just did, and they chant some prayers before they start speaking. So I'd just like to mention, this is a bona fide process, actually. It's not some compassion. It takes place in the Bhagavatam, in the second canto, fourth chapter of the Bhagavatam, titled The Process of Creation. It takes place, I'll read you something. So this is Sutta Goswami speaking. He says, when Sukadeva Goswami was thus requested by the king to describe the creative energy of the personality of Godhead, so he was requested to speak about something, he says, he then systematically remembered the master of the senses, Sri Krishna, and to reply properly, he spoke thus. And then the next 12 texts are Sukadeva Goswami offering prayers before he actually starts answering the question. And he says things like, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he glorifies him in different ways. And there's about 8 verses like that. And at the end of some of them, he says, may that Supreme Personality, may that Supreme Absolute be pleased with me. May he be merciful to me. May the Lord be pleased with me. May he decorate my statements
like that. So it's a bona fide process. It's a shame that sometimes the speakers don't share with us what it is they're praying. Sometimes speakers do, but a lot of times devotees just kind of quote some verses, and most of us don't know what they're praying. But anyway, it's all good. But it is a bona fide process, and I just wanted to share this with you. That's, Sukadev Goswami, he's doing that, and I thought it was interesting that at the end of, out of 4 or 5 of his statements, he's praying that the Lord be pleased with him, which is kind of the essence of everything. There's that verse in the first canto, 2nd chapter of the Bhagavatam, I think it's text 13, Atakpum bir dvija shreshta varna shrama vibhagasha sanustitasya dharmasha samsidhir haditosanam. That's the perfection of the whole thing, that somehow or another the Lord is pleased. So he's well aware of that, and he's praying for that, and that's particularly significant in my mind because, he's the person we're hearing the Bhagavatam primarily. I mean, of course, Vyasadeva is the author, but Sukadev Goswami is the primary speaker, and the primary speaker, this is what he's praying. He's praying that the Lord be pleased with him. So I just want to share that with everybody. So as far as today's verse goes, so what we have here is, it's talking about Akrura, and it's like sort of a perfectional stage of devotional service is being described here. Akrura had achieved that perfectional stage of devotional service. He was fully absorbed in incessant thoughts of Krishna. And a particular instance is being shared with us of when that happened. That's the primary. And the secondary example is given by Srila Prabhupada right towards the end of the purport. He mentions Lord Chaitanya, how he displayed the same transcendental ecstasy in his life. And so since Prabhupada in the purport, actually more than the purport, both the translation and the purport refer to a particular incident, I would like to share that incident with everybody because it's described briefly in the Krishna book, 2 paragraphs. So I'll just read you the 2 paragraphs that are being referred to here in this translation and also in the purport indirectly. So this is from the chapter Akrura arrives in Vrindavan. It says, in this way, Akrura, the son of Swapalka, meditated on Sri Krishna on his journey from Mathura. He reached Vrindavan by the end of the day. Akrura passed the whole journey without knowing how long it took. When he reached Vrindavan, the sun was setting. As soon as he entered the boundary of Vrindavan, he saw the hoofprints of the cows and Lord Krishna's footprints impressed with the signs of his souls, the flag, trident, thunderbolt, and lotus flower. These symbols on the soles of the Lord's transcendental lotus feet are worshipped by all the demigods and other great personalities throughout the 3 worlds. Upon seeing the footprints of Krishna, Akrura immediately jumped down from the chariot out of respect. He became overwhelmed with all the symptoms of ecstasy. He wept, and his body trembled. Out of extreme jubilation, upon seeing the dust touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, Akrura fell flat on his face and began to roll on the ground. So that's a description of the incident that's being referred to in the translation. Now, Prabhupada, in the next paragraph, kind of gives us an instruction in relation to this incident. He says, Akrura's journey to Vrindavan is exemplary. One who intends to visit Vrindavan should follow the ideal footsteps of Akrura and always think of the pastimes and activities of the Lord. That's the primary thing we should be doing. Always think of the pastimes and activities of the Lord. But then practically, he probably goes on to say, as soon as one reaches the boundary of Vrindavan, he should immediately smear the dust of Vrindavan over his body without thinking of his material position and prestige. So both things, Prabhupada's recommending both things should be there. Definitely it's easy enough for us to do the second one. When you get to Vrindavan, just take the dust and smear it all over your body. But the first one is probably certainly as important, probably more important, which is the thinking of the pastimes and activities of the Lord. But also, when you get there, smear the dust. It goes on to say, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung in a celebrated song, Vishaya Chadiya Kabe Shuddha Habimana, when my mind will be purified after leaving the contamination of material sense enjoyment, I shall be able to visit Vrindavan, end quote. Actually, one cannot go to Vrindavan by purchasing a ticket. The process of going to Vrindavan is shown by Akrura. So, I think Prabhupada, by that last sentence, is emphasizing of the two things that you're supposed to do, the first one is more important, which is being constantly and always thinking of the pastimes and activities of the Lord. And it's just being there, physically being there, that's good, and it's important. But as Prabhupada mentions here, you can't purchase a ticket to Vrindavan. In other words, you could go there, but not be there, if that makes any sense. You can actually physically be in Vrindavan, Mayapur, whatever, but if you're not in the consciousness, there's a sense in which you're not there. So in order to really be there, you have to follow the process of going to Vrindavan shown by Akrura, which was, as mentioned in the purport, today's purport, he says, Prabhupada says, this ecstasy is possible for a devotee who is fully absorbed in incessant thoughts of Krishna. So we have to prepare to go to Vrindavan by doing more than just collecting some Lakshmi and buying a ticket and, booking a room in an ashram or something like that. You have to be constantly cultivating this remembrance, absorption, incessant thoughts of Krishna. So Prabhupada also mentions Lord Chaitanya in this regard. And so I guess what's supposed to happen now is that the person who's giving the class is supposed to try to give the people who are the audience, the people who are attending the class, some guidance, some inspiration, some instruction on how to advance, how to progress towards achieving this exalted, elevated state of devotional service. It's Prabhupada refers to as thoughts being absorbed in Krishna, samadhi. So ideally, this would best be done by somebody who's very advanced, or the most advanced person in that group of devotees, such as Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, Adi Karta Prabhu, Apurva Prabhu, Mother Kamalini, one of my god brothers and god sisters. But somehow or another, I'm sitting here. Apologize. But, etiquette is being observed. I'm a guest here, so I've been asked to speak. So I'm going to attempt to try to say something to the best of my ability that will hopefully be helpful to assembled devotees to progressing towards this, if they're not already there, which probably in the case of my god brothers and god sisters, they're already there, but for others who aren't, that will be helpful to them in progressing towards this perfectional stage of being fully absorbed in incessant thoughts of Krishna. So I thought the way I'd go about doing that is by trying to share something with everybody that I personally do. It's Krishna conscious, and on top of that, I do it. So that I think that's important. It's, you want to present something to everybody that's bona fide, and if something bona fide is something that you're already also doing yourself, I think that kind of adds some weight to it. So I'm going to do that, and I apologize if it's something that I've said before, that you've heard before from me, but I consider that. But I feel like by once again saying what I'm about to say, I'm able to make my most valuable contribution to this Sangha. And yeah. So, a aside, so it's mentioned here, as I said, Akrura is mentioned in the translation and the purport, and in the purport, Prabhupada also brings up the example of Lord Chaitanya as someone who showed the example of somebody being absorbed in incessant thoughts of Krishna. How does he put it? The typical example of transcendental ecstasy. That's how he refers to Lord Chaitanya. So he certainly was. Another, and I heard Prabhupada say this in a lecture, following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, another typical example of transcendental ecstasy was the six Goswamis. They were also typical examples of transcendental ecstasy, following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya. About them, it was said by Srinivasacharya, Radha kunda tate kalindi tanaya tire chavamsi bate premon madhavashada shesha dasaya grasto pramato sada gayanto chakada harer gunavaram bhava vibhuto mudha bande rupa sanatana raguyago shijiva gopalago. So Srinivasacharya says, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who were sometimes on the bank of the Radhakunda lake or the shores of the Yamuna, and sometimes at Vamsi Bhat. Here it comes. There they appeared just like madmen in full ecstasy of love for Krishna, exhibiting different transcendental symptoms in their bodies. They were merged in the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. And in the next verse, he goes on to further describe this transcendental state that they were in. He says, Hey Radhe Rajadevi Ke Chalalite, Hey Nanda Suno Kutaha, Sri Govardhana Kalpa Pada Patale, Kalindi Vane Kuta, Gosanta Viti Sarvato Rajapure, Kedar Mahabibalo, Bande Rupa Sanatana Raguyago, Sri Jiva Gopalago. Translation again. He says, I offer my respectful obeisances to the six Goswamis, who were chanting very loudly everywhere in Vrindavan, shouting, Queen of Vrindavan, Radharani, O Lalita, O son of Nanda Maharaj, where are you all now? Are you just on the hill of Govardhan, or under the trees on the bank of the Yamuna? Where are you? These were their moods in executing Krishna consciousness. So you can visualize the scene there. You know, they're running around or chanting very loudly everywhere in Vrindavan like that. So there were examples of that too. And Prabhupada, so this was noted. What's being described here has been noted by prominent devotees throughout the history of our sampradaya, our line, the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. It was particularly noted by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, so much so that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he at one point makes the statement, he says, H.I. Goshai Kodi Charanavandan Jaha Hoite Bignanash Abhishta Paran. He says that after reciting the names of the six Goswamis. And the translation for that, he says, I pray to the lotus feet of the six Goswamis, Sri Rupa, Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva, Gopala, Bhatta, Dasa Raghunath. Why? He explains why. He says, so that all impediments to my writing this literature will be annihilated and my real desire will be fulfilled. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, we know the story, I'm sure we're all familiar with the story. He was requested to write, elaborate on the latter pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, but they approached him at a very advanced age. He was already kind of in his 90s, I believe, at the time when he was requested to take on that service. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he describes early, way back in the beginning of the Madhya Lila, he describes, this is my paraphrase now, in so many words, to his audience, he reveals this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. To be honest with you, I mean, I'm old, my hands are shaking, I can't see very well, I can't hear very well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, I don't even know how I'm doing it in the first place, and I certainly don't know if I'm going to be able to complete this. So right off the bat, I'm going to give you a synopsis of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, which takes place right at the beginning of Madhya Lila, so that in case I don't live long enough to complete this work, at least you got this. You got an overview of the whole thing. And so he proceeds to do that. So the point is he's praying. He's feeling helpless because he was up against this physical condition. So this is it appears in the Ansha Lila. This appears in the first chapter of the Ansha Lila. But he's praying to the six Goswamis to be able to finish the work. He took shelter. He's taking shelter of these, six Goswamis were kind of a bit senior to him. He's like just kind of the next generation down. Actually, he heard, if I remember correctly, he heard about these pastimes from Raghunath Das Goswami. And if I'm incorrect, please correct me at the end of the class. But my memory is that Raghunath Das Goswami showed up in Vrindavan, and I think he initially intended to commit suicide, but they talked him out of it, and they said, no. And what happened was for 2 hours every day, he would discourse. He would, kind of share the pastimes, because he had a lot of association. He was there with Lord Chaitanya and Swarup Damodar in Jagannath Puri. I think he was more like the disciple of Swarup Damodar than he was Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya kind of gave him over to the care of Swarup Damodar. I don't think it's mentioned whether officially he was initiated, but anyway, so he was there. He was a direct, how would you say it, observer of these pastimes. So when he got to Vrindavan, he did that, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, I believe, was somebody who was part of the audience, and he was fortunate to hear these pastimes narrated by Raghunath Das Goswami, and he was approached at some later date to share with the Vaishnavas, in written form, what he had heard, what he had learned from Raghunath Das Goswami. So he's praying like that, and of course, he wasn't the only one. In that song by Narottam Das Thakur that we sing a lot, Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha, like that. That song has 10 stanzas. I guess it's correct to refer to them as stanzas. So numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 of that song are all directly glorifying the six Goswamis. So Narottam Das Thakur also kind of appreciated the importance, the significance of the six Goswamis. And as did so many of the, acharyas coming down the line. Now, Prabhupada wrote a short purport, a one-paragraph purport to that prayer that appears in the Ansha Lila by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and it goes like this. He says, if one wants to benefit the entire world, which is all of us, right? That's like the job description of the members of the Krishna conscious movement, following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada, who was wanting to benefit the entire world, personified. That was Prabhupada, wanting to benefit the entire world personified. So we're Prabhupada Anugas, so we're trying to follow in Prabhupada's footsteps. We all want to benefit the entire world. So Prabhupada says, we will certainly find persons like hogs and pigs who will put forward many impediments. He says that is natural. Well, what does he mean by that is natural? Probably different perspectives that could be offered there, different ideas. But the idea that comes to my mind is that, people who aren't devotees, they're influenced by, if not exclusively, certainly predominantly by the modes of passion and ignorance. So just naturally, they're, when they're presented with something spiritual, they just, no. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. It's not like they're necessarily consciously premeditating, we're going to, do something to interfere with the activities. That might happen too. But it's just like people in the modes of passion and ignorance, just naturally, they're going to, if something pure is presented to them, no. So Prabhupada says we shouldn't be surprised by that people who are like hogs and pigs will put forward many impediments. That's natural. I think that's what it means by that. But he says, but if a devotee seeks shelter at the lotus feet of the six Goswamis, the merciful Goswamis will certainly give the Lord's servitor all protection. Okay, so that's sentences 1 and 2. Now, there's 2 more sentences in this purport, and it's something very interesting happens. Prabhupada repeats the exact same thing. He just says it in slightly different words, but I'm going to read it to you. He's going to give you he's going to say these exact same, the thought we just heard in sentence 1 and 2. He's going to repeat it again in the next 2 sentences. He says, "It is not astonishing that impediments are placed before those who are spreading the Krishna conscious movement all over the world." Well, he just said that in sentence 1. Now he's saying it again in sentence 3. Now in sentence 4 he says, "But nevertheless, if we adhere to the lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis and pray for their mercy, all impediments will be annihilated, and the transcendental devotional desire to serve the Supreme Lord will be fulfilled." So, kind of it's the same thing as saying if you seek shelter at the lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis, the merciful Goswamis will certainly give the Lord's servitor all protection, but he's elaborating upon it. So, the reason I think this is significant is like a benediction is being offered here. It's not the only one. Throughout the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's so many statements by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in relation to, say, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, where if you take shelter of their lotus feet, there's one that goes, if you remember the Panchatattva, a lame man can cross mountain, a blind man can see stars in the sky, a dumb man can recite beautiful poetry, like that. So this is not the only sort of statement of this nature. There are others, and you could take shelter of any of those, because they're all, they're being presented to us by one of the predecessor acharyas, a pure devotee. So if you kind of plug into any of these, I plugged into this one, like Krishna's arrangement. I've plugged into this one, and particularly because, I thought, well, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that's going to help me annihilate all impediments in my efforts to advance in devotional service, and that the transcendental devotional desire to serve the Supreme Lord will be fulfilled. I said, when I came across this, it was a very interesting situation that I came across it. I was sent out to do the Prabhupada Marathon, and it was the first day of the marathon. And I'll tell this very briefly because I probably mentioned it before, but it was the first day of the marathon. We were selling paraphernalia at the time, unfortunately, but that's what was going on. Anyway, so I got out there, and with full enthusiasm for the first 45 minutes or an hour I was trying. No, I didn't feel really into it because I wasn't a regular Sankirtan devotee at that point. I was being asked to do some other service, but when the marathon came around, didn't matter who you were, what you were, out you went. So I was out there in some country town in Australia, and with this big roll of paintings, and I wasn't so and the people weren't into it. I wasn't feeling so enthused about doing it, and they weren't feeling so enthused about seeing me when I walked into their shop. But and that you can say, well, so what? Okay. But the problem is that back in those days, the Prabhupada Marathon was like serious business. I mean, especially if you were just like a rank and file, which I was. I wasn't like a big shot leader or something like that. I was one of the devotees who expected to go out there and produce some results, do something. And so I felt a lot of pressure, So after about 45 minutes, an hour of just kind of, trying, but with nothing encouraging was happening, I went back to the car and to just try to gather my wits. And I was sitting there in the car thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? It was the first day, and I'm totally like, I'm not into it, and I can't see how this is going to act. And there's no question of like, throwing in the towel or going back, or I was just kind of like freaking out, you could say. Anyway, so I was sitting there, and I looked. I said, well, what can I do? I'll read. Let me read something. Maybe that'll help me get in better consciousness. So I looked around, and on the dashboard of the car there was a book, and I grabbed that book. It just so happened it was the Ansha Leela, Volume 1. And I opened up and I read the couple, one page. This is the verses I just read you are verses 3 and 4. So I, read the first 1 and 2, and then got to this after maybe a couple of minutes, and I read that, and I went, ooh, okay. I felt some hope, like a ray of light shone into my consciousness, and I thought, here's some hope, So I felt like Krishna was, from within, was inspiring me. So I just decided, okay, I'm going to do this. I got a program. I got something I could kind of take shelter of. I'm going to grab this roll of paintings, and I'm going to go out there, and I'm just going to chant. I'm going to try to do exactly what's mentioned here. I figured I was already adhering to the lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis, and by that I was chanting 16 rounds, following the 4 good principles. I'm out here trying to do what I've been asked to do to spread the Krishna conscious movement. So I figured I had that part down, I was adhering. And then the other thing was praying. So I thought, well, okay, at that point I didn't have that song memorized. I knew of it. I had been chanting it. I was introduced to it way back in 1978 by my Sankirtan leader, whose name was Budara Das, a god brother of ours. He lives someplace in England. I think he lives in Bath, the last time I was in touch with him. Anyway, but I hadn't memorized it, but I did know the refrain, Bande Rupa Sanatana Raguya Go, Shri Jiva Gopala Go. So I just decided, okay, I'm just going to chant that repeatedly. And while I'm chanting that, I'll pray to the six Goswamis for their mercy. So I just got out there and I just started chanting, Bande Rupa Sanatana Raguya Go, Shri Jiva Gopala Go, over and over. That was my Maha Mantra at that point, you know. And by Krishna's mercy, everything changed. Like, everything changed. I started feeling, well, right off the bat, the first change was I started feeling enthusiasm. I felt, it was more than just hope. I felt hope because, intellectually I could understand that this could work, you know. And then when I started chanting like that, I felt like some transcendental reciprocation. I started feeling like relishing the transcendental sound vibration. I felt like, when you're getting a taste for chanting, like that. Not big time, but something. Something was there. I felt some like encouragement coming from the internal energy. And when I went into the different shops, people were responding differently. They were, okay, well, hi, what do you got? Let's see what you got. And I'd show them the paintings and they'd buy. Anyway, I started doing good. And each day I was doing better. And so I quickly learned the song. I quickly learned the Sanskrit and the English translation. And I expanded my mantra to the whole Sri Sri Sad Goswami Astika. So it was a month-long marathon. So what I was doing the whole month, I just chant the Sanskrit, recite the English translation. Chant the Sanskrit, recite the English translation. Chant the Sanskrit, like that, all day long. And while, going and showing the people the paintings and so forth. So it kind of worked. It worked. I felt like by the mercy of the six Goswamis, some impediments had been annihilated, and I don't know how transcendental my desire was, but the desire was being fulfilled. I wasn't bombing out. I was doing good. So the point is, though, that this is something I've kind of like, I wish I could say that I've done it without interruption, incessantly, without stopping from that moment onwards, but I haven't. Maya's very powerful. At least my unfortunate experiences, despite sometimes you get a taste in Krishna consciousness, Maya can cover you over, and you stop. You don't do what you were doing previously to get that taste. Maya's that powerful. So that's what happened in my case. I've kind of, despite the fact that I had that of what I consider very strong, positive, transcendental experience. I mean, in my category, but you get covered over and you lose it. But I kept coming back to it. By Krishna just would bring me back to it, and because that was like 40 years ago. But over in and out, I just keep coming back to this. And at least now, on a regular daily basis, when I go out on Sankirtan, I always have this picture on the table, and sometimes I take it off the table. If it's really tough, I'll take it off the table, and I just hold it right to my chest there. It's like a deity. Like with the deity, the thing good about the deities, you see them, you can touch them. You dress them, you bathe them. And so this is like a deity for me. I'm thinking and I'm physically holding and I'm praying for the mercy. And it helps. It makes a difference. I feel it really makes it works. So as I said, this is specific. This is the program that I'm doing. There's so many other programs that one could have. There's so many different shlokas or benedictory sort of verses throughout the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Bhagavatam that one could take shelter of. I've just particularly taken shelter of this one. But I think the point is, the general principle is, you got to take shelter. If we're expecting, and we obviously want to come to this stage that Akrura that's being described here, that Akrura has achieved, and we want to not imitate, but follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya and the six Goswamis and advance to this elevated stage of devotional service where we're completely absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, experiencing transcendental ecstasy. In order to achieve that, we require the mercy. And there's different ways you can, this is my way, I'm hoping that I'll get the mercy. there are others. I'm not saying this is the only way you could go about trying to get the mercy. I think this is one. I'm going to share something from the second canto of the Bhagavatam, which will give us some insight into what's involved, the underlying principle of getting the mercy. This is, I neglected to make, I think it's chapter 4 someplace, the second canto, chapter 4, perhaps text 1920. In the purport, Prabhupada says, living beings are proportionately endowed with intelligence in terms of their previous activities. All living beings are not equally endowed with the same quality of intelligence, because behind such development of intelligence is the control of the Lord. That's an important sentence right there. How does it read again? Behind such development of intelligence is the control of the Lord. As declared in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15. As Paramatma Supersoul, the Lord is living in everyone's heart, and from him only does one's power of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness follow. And Prabhupada quotes the Sanskrit in the purport, Mataks Matir Jnanam Aponam Cha. He says, one person can sharply remember past activities by the grace of the Lord. See, it's not a mechanical thing. It's by the grace of the Lord, while others cannot. One is highly intelligent by the grace of the Lord. Same, repeats that phrase again, by the grace of the Lord. And one is a fool by the same control. Therefore, the Lord is Dhyam-pati, or the Lord of intelligence. So in other words, to be blessed by this advanced stage of devotional service, being absorbed in the thought of Krishna, we require the grace or the mercy of the Lord. Don't happen any other way, you see. So we have to, each one of us, we have to have a program. We have the general program. You rise early, you chant your rounds, but we have to be kind of like really meditating, and this should be an important thing in our life. What's my program? What's my mantra? What's the way I'm going to try to get that mercy? That Krishna within my heart allows me to get absorbed in these, transcendental, ecstatic thoughts of Him. I'm trying with this. As I said, there's other ways one could go about it, but I think that's a general principle, just to recognize and acknowledge that point that it's not a mechanical thing. It's not like, you go to the gym and work out and you develop your mind, or you stop eating and you lose weight. Those things will happen without any mercy, but as far as getting the mercy of the Lord goes, it's something that's, you have to be awarded. You have to be awarded. It's not like, for instance, if you stop eating for 2 weeks, so you just drink water and just suck the juice out of an orange every day so you can stay alive, you're definitely going to lose weight. There's no way you're not going to lose weight because it's kind of mechanical. But it's not like that with devotional service. You could do something in devotional service. If you do it mechanically, the result may or may not be there. In other words, the result in devotional service is ultimately dependent upon the decision of a person, Krishna. Krishna, the person, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has to decide, okay, as he says in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Nasyami atmabhavashto jnanadipena bhashvata, that out of compassion for them being those who are constantly devoted and worshiping Him with love, he says, out of compassion for them, I, who am dwelling within their heart, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. See, so ultimately, that's what's got to happen. Krishna's got to be pleased with our efforts, our attempts to engage in His loving devotional service, and in reciprocation with that, He will destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. And as He'll purify our consciousness and allow us to experience what, our original nature is. That verse, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sabhu Kabinaya Shravanadi Sute Chitte Kori. That pure love for Krishna is lying dormant within the heart of every living entity, and it's awakened by the process of hearing chanting. So when we engage in the hearing and chanting and Krishna is pleased, then that natural dormant love for God becomes awakened. So I think that's all I have to say about this verse and purport. 831. Is that okay? Enough said. So hopefully somebody has a comment or a question. That way I don't feel like I bombed out altogether. This little audience response. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing your secret. That's it. There we go. There you are. Got your secret revealed.
Yeah, thank you for appreciating that. I don't get I don't get results like Mahotsa, but I'd like to share. I had my best 2 weeks on Sankirtan just before coming here, career-wise. I had, I'll say it not to brag, but just to kind of to try to support that this is something bona fide. I had 10 days. I did just a little under $9,000 Lakshmi, and probably I did over 1,000 books, which is, as I said, nothing compared to what Mahotsa does almost on a daily basis. But for me, that was really good, and this is what I'm doing. This is my program. So I feel like there's something to it. It's working because I'm even like I feel like astounded by those results. I feel like, what? How is that possible? But it happens. I'm living proof that anybody could do Sankirtan, because I'm about as dull as they come. I'm like the dullest of the dull. I'm using the same lines now that I was 50 years ago. I'm just getting duller as I go along. So, and as if I could do Sankirtan and get that kind of result, that means to me anybody can do it. It's definitely not dependent upon some material ability, because I don't have it. I mean, if it is, then it's impossible. So I feel like I'm really, by doing this, by praying like that, I'm getting the mercy of the six Goswamis. Something transcendental is happening. And that's why I wanted to share this with everybody, because it doesn't matter. Whatever your material situation is, if we take shelter, as it says here, of the six Goswamis, then the impediments are annihilated and the transcendental devotional desire to serve the Supreme Lord is fulfilled. And I'm sure that applies for any service. I mean, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami was a writer. I'm trying to sell some books. It could be, a cook could do this, a pujari could do that, anybody. The principle is that, we take, and one last point. Praying is more than just asking. And probably everybody knows this. Praying, in English, we tend to think of praying as just, you're asking for this, asking for that. But prayer is also glorifying. Like this song is referred to as the prayers to the six Goswamis by Srinivasacharya. He's not asking for anything. There's 8 stanzas in this song. He's not asking. At the end, he hasn't just he doesn't even tag in at the end, please give me this and that. No. Spiritual or material. He's just glorifying. So praying is glorifying. So when we hear this instruction, because I kept reading these same sentences, and I would just think, well, pray. I'm always thinking in terms of I'm asking, but praying is glorifying, and that's important too. That it's not just asking. It's not just begging. Please give me your mercy. Please give me your mercy. Please give me. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But it's good to learn these prayers by Srinivasacharya, Sukadev Goswami, as I started the class by sharing with everybody that, he's being asked by Maharaj Parikshit to describe the creation of the universe, and before he opens his mouth, after he opens his mouth, but before he actually starts addressing the question, there's 12 or 13 verses where he says, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, and then the next one. Same thing again, and he glorifies him in a different way. 12 or 13 verses like that, and at the end of 3 or 4 of them he says, may he be pleased with me, may he bestow his mercy upon me, like that. So, we can learn from the acharyas how to pray, how to do that. So that was another thought I had. Anybody else have anything they'd like to kick in there? Mother Kamalini over there.
Thank you so much. So about this point of mercy, like we see how you've taken shelter of the six Goswamis, and you feel their mercy and blessings. And I know Mahotsaha and the others, they say due to the blessings of Bhakti Vikas Swami, they're able to do this. So could you speak a little about how, and how so many devotees ask you please bless me that I can distribute books as well. So how do those blessings come down, and what does that mean when you bless someone and when someone asks you to bless them? There's a reciprocation, and how does that work? Because you're alluding to the fact that it's quite palpable. It's a real thing to get mercy, to get blessings. So,
Yeah. My one-word answer is parampara. That's my one-word answer. In the case of Mahotsa, like Mahotsa has on his phone, when the phone rings, he's got this excerpt from a lecture. His Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, said in a lecture, says, the lotus feet of the Guru are there's no higher mantra than the lotus feet of the Guru. And he's got it looped. Who's speaking to Ramanuja? Oh, his spiritual master. Gotcha. Okay, but he has that on his phone when the phone rings, right? That's the. It's his alarm. It's his alarm. It's his alarm in the morning. So he wakes up and he's hearing that the highest. How's it go again? There's no higher mantra than the lotus feet of the Guru, and it repeats a few times like that. So I thought, wow, that's his meditation, and I was additionally enlivened by that, because I thought, well, this is proof that what we're doing is bona fide, because he's obviously praying, he's thinking of the lotus feet of his spiritual master, Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, and I don't think that what he's doing I don't think you could say what he's doing is just because of good karma. I mean, yeah, he's got some good karma for being able to, engage people in devotional service, liberate Lakshmi. We'd all agree with that, but it's beyond that. To me, what he's doing, the kind of results he's getting in book distribution, is an indication that the parampara is come down. It didn't end with Prabhupada. Prabhupada's disciples are connected to the same spiritual energy, and the proof of that is their disciples are going out and they're doing incredible things. This is incredible to me, to be honest with you. Adi Karta hopefully would agree with me. And we've been around for a while. This is like a pretty incredible setup here. This has been here a few years, and this is like amazing temple, amazing grounds, devotees coming to the whole program, enthusiastically plugging into the sadhana, the preaching, and this is like, wow. So it's just proof to me that the parampara, the disciplic succession, is alive and kicking, as the expression goes. It didn't stop with Prabhupada. It's continuing on. So as far as the blessings go, we have to look to see who has, who's in parampara, who's in the disciplic succession, and try to get shelter from them. Get encouragement, get guidance, get encouragement like that, and then it seems like it's working definitely on the Diksha level here. And people ask me for blessings. I'll just show them, I'll give them a picture and say, do this. I don't feel like I have any blessings to give, but I think that the parampara is continuing, and that's where the blessings are coming because of that connection with the parampara, the disciplic succession. Is that a correct answer, Maharaj and Adikarta? Would you say that? Would you want to add anything to that? Or Maharaj looks like he's...
Here's a suggestion. When people ask for blessings, you can ask them, do you have all of Srila Prabhupada's books? And if they don't, they say, here's my blessings. $500.
The books are the blessings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they have them all, then there are others also. Prabhupada Leelamrita said. And
having the
I
books
was
is
suggesting that Mother Kamalini get all the other books, because they're not available in America. The other books of Prabhupada, they're available in India. So get that set, and then you can tell people, you have all the Prabhupada. Yeah, I have you have this. And There's so many small books, and then he, something like that.
Yeah, there was one of our godbrothers, Vishal. Sure.
Yeah,
So he used to, when he spent a lot of time in Vrindavan, and so Prabhupada used to come down at a certain time, and Vishal would know that, he'd be there waiting for him, and he would chant some prayers, quote some shlokas from the first canto of the Bhagavatam, that one about, we believe we've met your grace by the will of providence, you're the captain of the ship. He would recite that verse to him and others, and then he would go to Prabhupada, please, at least on one occasion, he said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, please give me your blessings. And Prabhupada looked at him and said, more books, more blessings. Because he was a book distributor, so more books, more blessings. So that's a good, rule of thumb, More books. Distribute more books, more blessings. And for people who don't already have them, get more books. The books, the blessings are on the books. Yeah. That evoked.
as we're on the subject of Vishal and books, there was one time in Vrindavan where he was very audacious, you could say. And so he walked into a room with Prabhupada, had a whole darshan going on, and he walked into the room and just put a book into everyone's hand and told them to buy a book, right in Prabhupada's presence. And then he asked Prabhupada, this is audacity, if you like, that this latest book came out. There's only one copy in the whole of Vrindavan, and you have it. I haven't read it yet. Could I borrow it? And Prabhupada said, yes, okay.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, anybody, anything else? Mother Kamalini, had a hand up again. We're still doing okay for time, 8:43, so.
You mentioned about Raghunath Das. Was it Raghunath Das who was going to commit suicide? I thought it was someone else. Wasn't it a Sanatan that had sores?
That's there too.
It was
that's there
Raghunath?
for sure. Sanatan Goswami, but I think also when Raghunath Das.
Sanatan was planning suicide under the Rath Yatra wheel, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read his mind and told him not to do that, saying that if by committing suicide I could attain Krishna, I'd commit suicide millions of times. And then Raghunath Das, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed away, and Swarup Damodar passed away, and so many others passed away. And he thought, well, I want to pass away too. What do I want to be here for? Then he came to Vrindavan with the idea of seeing Vrindavan once, and he was going to commit suicide by jumping off the Govardhan hill. But then Rupa and Sanatan, they forbade him. And then he would discourse. That's why we have Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Antya Leela, because he told it to Krishnadas Kaviraj. He told all these pastimes. Otherwise we wouldn't have it.
Okay. Okay. Anybody, anything else? Adikarta Prabhu? Say if you.
It's the parampara is obviously very, very important because you have to have a living guru, and you have to have a living example of somebody who's following their guru. So sometimes some of our contemporary gurus say that it's the closer you bring the devotee to Prabhupada, that's the degree to which you're a good guru. But at the same time, one has to be a guru in his own right. And because devotees need the association of somebody who's plugged into the parampara. And if somebody's afraid to be a guru, then the disciples won't be very confident in him or following his instructions. So having a guru who is following Srila Prabhupada properly, that's, the most important thing. Because really, it all comes down to following Prabhupada's instructions and ultimately following the Goswami's instructions. But we don't see that like Rupa Goswami, we pray to Rupa Goswami, Shri Chaitanya Manobhastam Stapatami and Bhutale, that, he's fulfilling the desire of Lord Chaitanya. You could say that he's the chief disciple of Lord Chaitanya, but we don't really hear so much about him, really. It's not like he's a very prominent like Prabhupada. So how will the disciplic succession carry on? Because Prabhupada, 200 years from now, 300 years from now, 500 years from now, he's not going to be fresh in everybody's memory. So you have to have empowered gurus to carry on the mission. So whether it's right now, whether it's 500 years from now, the guru is the one that, inspires the devotee by his living example. So, all glories to Bhakti Swami because he is a living example. I'm very inspired by Shiva Ramaswamy. I'm not his disciple, but I'm distributing his books because I believe he's giving something very important. He's writing books that are very important for devotees who are serious about attaining love of God. Mm-hmm. So I don't mind distributing his books. I distribute Prabhupada's books most of the time. Mother Kalamalini, she's the same. So, having a guru who's not afraid to be a guru is a good thing.
Not afraid to... Just could you repeat that last?
I said having a guru who's not afraid to be a guru is very important. Mm-hmm. That, one should accept the service or train devotees. It's very impressive here. The devotees are trained nicely. And all glories to Maharaj. And it's the same when I go to Hungary. I see the devotees are trained very nicely. They've established something wonderful there. And, I like going to Hungary. I'm very welcome there. It's not like there's any reticence on the behalf of the disciples that, Maharaj feels awkward in front of his godbrothers. It's not really like that. It's, he's happy to have devotees going there, godbrothers, as long as they're not envious. Because, he doesn't mind being a guru, even to his godbrothers. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. You shared that with us. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. If anybody would like a picture of the 6 Goswamis with the song, they could come up and go.